Homer Price, Wheels of Progress, and page 126 through 134. This is chapter 6, part 1. I can't go fishing today, Freddie, said Homer, because I'm helping Uncle Ulysses down at the lunchroom. Seems as though the fish ought to be biting on a day like this. Do you think your Uncle Ulysses could use an extra helper today, Homer? Because it isn't imperative that I have to go fishing. I just thought if you weren't busy, gosh, Freddie, Uncle Ulysses would like it. He always says the more help, the merrier. But Aunt Aggie is a too many cooks spoil the soup sort of person. And she says she's sick and tired of seeing more people behind the counter than in front of it. Okay, Homer, said Freddie with a sigh. I'll see you tomorrow. Bring me a couple of donuts if you can. When Homer entered the lunchroom, there was Uncle Ulysses, puttering with one of his labor-saving devices. Hello, Homer, he said. You're just in time to help me adjust the timing mechanism on this electric toaster. When you want the toast to come out light brown, it comes out nut brown, and vice versa. Homer and Uncle Ulysses tinkered with the toaster and then tried several pieces of toast. Then they tinkered with the mechanism some more. How is the donut machine working these days, Uncle Ulysses? Asked Homer. Just fine, said Uncle Ulysses. We're selling more donuts than ever with the new recipe. I suppose you've heard about the lady who gave us the old family recipe, the lady who lost her bracelet in the batter? She lives in Centerburg now. She's Naomi Enders, a great-great-great-granddaughter of Ezekiel Enders, the first settler of Centerburg. She inherited all of Enders' property when old Luke Enders died. She owns the mill and the patent medicine company now and is living in the big Enders homestead at the edge of town. She stops by for donuts almost every day. One of my best customers, she is. Yep, said Homer. The judge mentioned that she had come to live in Centerburg. He said that she was a public-spirited person and would be an addition to the town. She appreciates good food, said Uncle Ulysses, tasting a piece of nut brown toast. And what's more, she has a receptive mind, receptive to new devices and up-and-coming ideas. A car stopped out front, and Uncle Ulysses peered out and said, Here she comes now, Homer. Better start packing 24 donuts to take out. Good afternoon, said Miss Enders. Hello, Homer. I haven't seen you since the night my bracelet disappeared. Hello, Miss Enders, said Homer. How do you like living in Centerburg? I think it's a marvelous town, simply marvelous, replied Miss Enders. I've been thinking of what I could do to show my appreciation for the way people of Centerburg have received me. Everyone has been so kind, simply marvelous. I've just been talking to the judge, and he has informed me that there is a growing housing shortage and that people are having difficulty finding places to live. I've decided that a nice way of showing my appreciation would to build a few homes on the family property. They could be replicas of the Enders homestead, a sort of monument, and I could rent them reasonably to deserving families. Said Uncle Ulysses, stroking his chin. Good idea, Miss Enders, good idea. Homer agreed, and while he counted out 24 donuts, he thought of the fun there would be walking rafters and joists in the new houses. Uncle Ulysses stopped stroking his chin and said, I'll tell you, Miss Enders, it wouldn't do any harm to have more modern houses than a homestead. Of course, said Miss Enders, modern plumbing. Uncle Ulysses went back to stroking his chin and saying, And modern kitchen equipment, said Miss Enders, as though she knew what would bring instant approval from Uncle Ulysses. Said Uncle Ulysses as he stroked his chin from left to right. Finally, he cleared his throat. These are changing times, Miss Enders, and we're living in an age of ideas and production genius. Now, take the way they used to make donuts, for instance. Each one cooked by hand and all that time and bother. Now we have this wonderful machine. Makes donuts just like that, said Uncle Ulysses, snapping his finger. Snap, snap, snap. It's marvelous, said Miss Enders. Simply marvelous. Continued Uncle Ulysses. Now, take that matter of houses. The way they used to build houses, saw up each board, hammer in nails one at a time, every little shingle and doorknob fastened on by hand. But now, said Uncle Ulysses, with up-and-coming ideas, and modern production genius houses can be built just like this here machine makes donuts. And he made a broad sweep with his right arm. That's the principle, pronounced Uncle Ulysses, while Miss Enders and Homer gazed in wide-eyed wonder. That's the principle that Harry Ford applied to making autos. Yep, autos are mass-produced like donuts, ships are built like donuts, airplanes and refrigerators, and now houses. Yes, sirree, the modern house ought to be mass-produced. Just like cars or ships or planes. Yes, sirree. Mass-produced, just like that there machine makes donuts. And here Uncle Ulysses snapped his fingers, snap, 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 and said, houses just like that. He then stopped waving his arm and talking and appeared startled that he had talked so much with such wisdom. He started stroking his chin again, while Miss Enders, quietly, visibly impressed, was murmuring, marvelous. Simply marvelous. Homer counted the 24 donuts again. Of course, said Uncle Ulysses, it wouldn't be quite as fast or as easy as making donuts. But with the assembly lines and sub-assembly lines and power presses and touch ingenuity, that's your recipe. You can bake a house in 24 hours flat. Build correct, Homer? Build corrected, Homer? Simply marvelous, said the receptive Miss Enders. Simply marvelous. Homer had heard Uncle Ulysses' pet theories before, and the sheriff and the boys over at the barber shop all had heard Uncle Ulysses carry on about the up-and-coming ideas. In fact, arguing about Uncle Ulysses' pet theories had broken up as many pinochle and checker games as arguing about the World Series and women's suffrage put together. That was all that ever happened, though, arguing. But that afternoon in the lunchroom was different. Miss Enders was receptive to Uncle Ulysses' up-and-comingness, and what's more, she had the money to be receptive and up-and-coming with. Almost before the week was gone, Miss Enders and the judge, who was her lawyer, and Uncle Ulysses were having conferences. They wrote letters to Detroit, where they have assembly lines and sub-assembly lines and huge presses that can stamp out the whole side of a house just as easily as stamping out the body of a car or the section of a ship. They hired up-and-coming designers and landscape architects. Almost before she knew it, Miss Enders had made arrangements for 100 houses. A whole suburb to be built on the estate around the Enders homestead. As Uncle Ulysses so wisely put it, it don't pay to go to all the trouble of mixing batter and getting the machine hot for 2 or 3 donuts. Might just as well make 100 while you're at it. The plans were finally finished and the arrangements all made. The workmen arrived at the Enders estate, and then things really began to happen. The trees were chopped down and hauled away. The land was leveled by huge tractors, and streets were laid out around the old homestead in a day or 2. Then power diggers arrived right on schedule and dug one foundation right after another. Homer drove over to the suburb with Uncle Ulysses and Miss Enders to see how things were going. Uncle Ulysses watched the dirt fly and counted as the machines dug foundations, 72, 73, 74. I tell you, my boy, he said to Homer, you're witnessing the beginning of a new era in city planning and housing. 80, 81. Why, tomorrow they will start to build. By the end of the week, people will live here. Simply marvelous, exclaimed Miss Enders. Just think, last week there was only grass and trees and squirrels on this spot. Okay, that's chapter 6, part 1.